exuberance and excitement in the crowd. This is fantastic. I didn't know that you guys all knew my kids were doing a fundraiser, so I have chocolates outside. If you would each buy one when they leave. We've stepped it up a bit. They're $40 each now. Those $3 are no good. No good. Well, thank you everybody for coming out. For the people at home, welcome to the Town of Collingwood's Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee of Monday, June 6th. So we are going to call the committee to order. I'm looking that I will be the reader today. For more than 15,000 years, the First Nations walked upon and cared for the lands that we now call home. Anishinaabek, Haudenosaunee, and Ojibwe, and many others who were families, friends, and communities the way we are today. The town of Collingwood acknowledges the Lake Simcoe and Ottawa Treaty of 1818 and the relationship it establishes with the original inhabitants of Turtle Island. We acknowledge the reality of our shared history and the current contributions of Indigenous people within our community. We seek to continue empowering expressions of pride amongst all the diverse stakeholders in this area. We seek to do better and to continue to recognize, learn, and grow in friendship and community, nation to nation. We have a lot of presenters today here. We have a lot of people here. And I see that my high school vice principal is here, sir, so I hope I did that well. I know I still owe you a report, and I apologize. I will get it, and hopefully you can give me my diploma again today. The adoption of the agenda is that the content of the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee agenda for June 6th be adopted as presented. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by soon-to-be Mayor Hall, seconded by Councillor Berman. All those in favor? Boom. Any business arising from previous meetings? Seeing none. Declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Deputations. First up, Theatre Collingwood update. This is amazing. So we have Mr. Richard Lemoine. He's going to be joining us via Zoom. Zoom?
There we go.
Yes. Can you now hear me?
Yes, Mr. Lemoine, thank you very much for today, and we really look forward to your meeting, your presentation. You have 10 minutes, sir, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to speak about Theatre Collingwood. As stated, my name is Richard Lemoine, and I'm the current chair of the board of Theatre Collingwood. Theatre Collingwood has now been in Collingwood for 38 years. Founded by local residents who knew that arts and culture was vital to the health and well-being of any community, not only as an economic driver, but as a hub for artists to develop their talents and for community members to come together. And for those 38 years, Theatre Collingwood has been searching for a home. We have arduously performed at many different spaces over the years. Sadly, our ancestors in Collingwood seem to have understood more clearly the importance of an art centre. A two-day grand opening of the Grand Opera House was held in Collingwood in June 1890, for which members of the community dressed up to enjoy an Italian orchestra and a grand ball. The 1894 Board of Trade report boasted the seating capacity for 1,200 could squeeze in 1,600 if necessary. The Grand Opera House was demolished and replaced with the Community Arena, which opened in December 1948. There is currently no purpose-built theatre in Collingwood. Now, we at Theatre Collingwood have had to even resort to porches in Collingwood with the creation of our Portside Festival. However, poor weather could easily wipe that festival out. We are committed to providing the very best of entertainment for the community, but it is at great expense to us as we must literally create a theatre for every show we present. This means bringing in lighting, sound, staging, curtains, creating dressing rooms, and more. Everything. Theatre Collingwood believes that the time to recognize and support the arts was yesterday. The town of Collingwood is already far behind in the support of the thousands of artists and art enthusiasts in our community. I ask you to consider, why does a hockey team need an arena? They could play on a pond. Why? Because as citizens of this community, we expect and deserve better. We know we can achieve greater results for all the disciplines of the arts with a properly outfitted Center for Arts, Culture, and Entertainment in Collingwood. Are you aware that we have a circus company in Collingwood that must rent theatre space in Barrie? Our dance schools rent space at Muford Hall. Our local resident and longtime volunteer at Theatre Collingwood, Hella Sandberg, has compiled a list of over 200 artists in Collingwood, and we know there are many more that are not on her list. Our town is also full of young, emerging artists who could thrive and grow in a well-appointed space. We have a multitude of arts educators who could use space to grow our talent. For Theatre Collingwood, we are currently presenting 5 week-long shows in 2022. That's 30 performances plus 39 performances in the Portside Festival. We're running youth drama camps, at least 6 weeks of seniors drama programs. We run and operate a fully appointed box office, which offers ticketing services for other groups in the town. We have an executive director, a business development manager, box office manager, an outreach and volunteer coordinator, a dedicated social media coordinator, a graphic designer, a bookkeeper, and an extremely experienced board of directors who each bring great skills to our company. We have the ability to be an anchor tenant and a center for the arts. Collingwood does not have one performance space that would pass the accessibility standards. There is not one performance space that would comply with the equity standards for actors and crew, equity being the Actors Union of Canada. Accessibility is a necessity and a right. Every audience member deserves an accessible space. Every performer deserves an accessible space. It is the right thing to do. And size does matter. Professional performers need to be paid. Playwrights need to be paid. Technicians need to be paid. And we need enough of a margin to cover our operating costs. There is a limit to the per ticket price that our audience will tolerate. Therefore, we need enough seats to raise sufficient revenue. Sponsors consider the number of patrons when evaluating sponsorship options. We cannot financially sustain ourselves and operate out of the Simcoe Street Theatre. Too few tickets, and that space is not fully accessible. Also, it doesn't have any of that, everything I spoke about before. It cost us $8,000 last week to outfit that space with the required lighting, sound, and staging. Our move away from the Gaiety, another space with accessibility issues, and one does not comply with the equity standards, triggered the realization in the community that Theatre Collingwood and the other art sectors need and deserve a proper art space. As a result, a number of community members came together to see what could be done. The result was the formation of the Collingwood Arts, Culture, and Entertainment Group, more commonly known as CASE. The town included in their 2020 budget funding for a feasibility study, although I do note at the last moment, the amount recommended by staff was cut in half. Although the feasibility study came back stating a build of an arts center was feasible in Collingwood, some details were missing due to a lack of financial investment in the study. The consultants were hired in January 2021, and the report was received by the town in September 2021, 8 long months ago. Theatre Collingwood has been working with the town's Park Recreation and Culture Committee staff to move from the initial report to action. Our executive director is on the task force created by the PRC. We believe that the development of an arts center is a once-in-a-century project for any municipality. According to the Gantt chart prepared by the PRC, to date, none of the timelines have been met. This is of great concern to Theatre Collingwood and why I'm here to speak to you today. The town recently hired KPMG to facilitate and expedite the development of the terminals. This is a prime example of how goals are achieved when the proper consultants are engaged. We would like the Arts Center built to be expedited. A consulting company could be hired to determine the size and location while consulting with the community. It is unreasonable to expect that any municipal staff would have the experience, knowledge, or time to bring a project of this magnitude to fruition. This is akin to staff undertaking the design and build of the expansion to the water treatment plant. Major projects require technical expertise and experience that are not commonly present in municipal staff. Remember, this is a once-in-a-century project. PRC has now created a task force that brings together a variety of members of the local arts community. While this is needed, the tasks being allocated to this committee are better completed by subject experts, as the members of the task force lack the expertise. And I know that the task force members have made this clear at their last meeting. Funds have been allocated by council for the development of an art center. Please use some of those funds to hire consultants to expedite this process. We have been urging staff to bring in experts to help them with the next steps. Where should it be located? What size and what components should be included, and ensuring that the project is financially viable. We urge this committee and through it council to instruct the staff to re-engage the consultant to prepare the initial study to answer the 3 questions: where, what, and the viability. We urge council to set strict timelines for this project with an end goal to construct the center as soon as practically possible, and we at CASE see that within 5 years. The board of Theatre Collingwood would like to say we're committed to making sure that Theatre Collingwood provides entertainment and food for the soul of our community for another 38 years. But not having a purpose-built, accessible, and engaging space to perform and create in makes it extremely difficult to keep that commitment. On behalf of Theatre Collingwood, our corporate partners, our individual donors, and our advertisers, our database of 20,000, and our newsletter base of 5,000, our staff, and our 100 volunteers, I urge you to make this a priority and a commitment for the town. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lemoine. At 8 minutes, 43 seconds, you came in perfect timing. Well done presentation to our committee. I had questions along the way which were answered, but I'm going to look to my committee members to see if they have any questions. No, I don't think we go to the public first. No, I'm going to look to my committee members. Seeing none. Yep. You know what? Today is the day. Mayor Hall? Today's the day. He's the mayor now.
Not quite, but thank you. I just would like to maybe just offer a comment. I don't have a specific question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And that is that I know that there are many people within the community who are incredibly passionate about the arts. And as somebody who doesn't necessarily come from family that is particularly active within the arts, I did marry into one at one time. And many know my ex-mother-in-law, Catherine Brown. And
can you just get closer so they can't hear you?
And the reason I reference that is that
No, the difference for me is I'm sitting right beside him so I can hear him. Maybe his mic's not on?
I can hear him.
Okay. I'll speak up just a bit, and hopefully that does project. The reason I just simply reference the fact that my ex-mother-in-law is Catherine Brown is, one, that she's an individual who I think is still recognized throughout the community from a grassroots perspective in terms of her involvement with the arts and cultural scene. And in particular, some of her involvement through the Presbyterian Church, which certainly then has tentacles throughout the community. But it impressed upon me as a person, and I think that I am reflective of many who came to the area because of the natural amenities, the athletic amenities, et cetera, and who were not necessarily in tune with the arts and cultural community, and not only the rich history, but the diversity and the possibilities. And I've made it very clear here, and I think, and I don't want to put words in my colleagues' mouths when I say this, but I do believe that this council, and I recognize that we're at committee, although the process maybe is slow and arduous and at times can be a little bit painful, I do think that we have been supportive this term, one, in providing direction, two, actually putting dollars behind that commitment, and three, following through so that perhaps the next council, whoever sits around this table, will be the ones that will be able to carry the torch as it relates to this opportunity. The final comment that I'll make is that there are many moving pieces within our community. And I do recognize that Theatre Collingwood has a specific challenge as it relates to a space that would become a permanent home. But in that challenge, I hope that it will be an opportunity and provide continuity and stability, not only in finding a home for them, but perhaps being an economic driver for our downtown as it continues to build out and grow. So my final thought, my final comment before I exit stage left is that I think we hear the words and the passion from Theatre Collingwood specifically. Secondly, Case, and that we will continue to work in terms of trying to move this development forward. And we hope that and recognize that although it is not moving at the pace in which those in our community want to see it move, from prior lessons learned, and there was a reference made to hockey, it is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and it is critical that we get it right the first time go round so that a generation from now or two, they are celebrating something that truly is a landmark and a jewel and functions properly for all of the users. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Deputy Chair, Vice Chair McLeod.
Thank you. Just to echo what Acting Mayor Hall has to say, thank you so much for coming to see us, and thank you for the excellent production that I took in last week, and all the excellent productions that we've all seen over the last 38 years. Theatre Collingwood is a treasure in this town, and we appreciate you. And we're really sorry it's taking so long to make these dreams come true. But as the acting mayor said, we want to do it right. And we are interested, and we are moving things along. I know it may seem glacial, but there's a lot on our plate. We hear you, and we understand, and we are also eager to see a wonderful project happen. So thank you for coming to see us. We do appreciate it.
Well, Mr. Lemoine, I just want to get clarification on one number that was quite shocking to me. Not a challenging your number, but did you say it cost $8,000 per production just to outfit?
Oh, that was for the week's production last week for the Vegas show.
$8,000 for a week. Correct. So, my simple math tells me that you will be a wonderful tenant, an anchor tenant in anything, because if you can generate $8,000 in a week, that's you've shown that you can provide substance to it. I'm going to make one last comment, and then I'm going to ask you to stand up, Miss Angus, if I can. I echo Keith and Marion's comments. I've been a seller of art in music for the last 30 years in Collingwood. I've taken my children to numerous productions in the city. I took my 8-year-old daughter to Jersey Boys, and the language in that, we seemed to be the center of attention when they turned around. My son was in the arts, went to college for the arts. I believe in it. We all believe in it. And we are sorry that it's taking forever. But Keith said it right. We don't want to build something, and then 2 years later, be wondering why we built something that nobody's using, or it's too far out from where it should be. So, oversaid, do it right, do it once. So, please tell us what you want. And $8,000 for one show proves that you can pay us rent. Erica, please stand up, and then I'm going to thank everybody for coming out to support. Don't forget the chocolates, and hopefully leave with a smile on your face, because we have listened to you, and we have had a lot to do, and COVID has really kicked the crap out of every community, and it's not an excuse. It's a reality. So it's tough to plan and build something when we don't know if our retail, if our restaurants, if our people are going to be working. So that being said, I believe we've put it behind us. And I think we can all agree that COVID will no longer be an excuse. It will be a reason to get better, to build more, and to show our community that we do care what they have to say. Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Councillor Madigan. I just wanted to speak to the $8,000 so it's fully understood. So it's our intention at Theatre Collingwood to bring the very best projects to fruition that we can. So could we bring in 2 iconic Canadian performers and put them in the middle of the floor here? But that isn't what we should be doing. So in that space, there is no curtaining. There is also very limited sound that doesn't work with the level of production that we are doing. And there isn't the lighting. So to bring that, so what we had to do was bring that in. We had to create a wing. I'm not going to get into the detail of all of that, but the rental for the week of that equipment was $8,000. Now, that's true. Theatre Collingwood does have a loyal following, and we do generate ticket sales, for which I'm very, very proud of. But that $8,000 really, truly affects our bottom line. And I can tell you that that production will not make a penny, because that doesn't account for hiring the entertainers, doesn't account for any of that, paying the technicians, all of the things that are involved with professional theater. However, we're happy to do it, and I'm very proud of what we did there. So I just wanted to explain why that is. So if we were to go into a space that was outfitted appropriately, that would be $8,000 that would not come off the bottom line. So I just wanted to reiterate that so you fully understood where that was coming from. But I thank you all, and I do honestly believe that each and every one of you gets this. I really do believe that. And, I've been here 10 years now with Theatre Collingwood, and for those 10 years, we've been talking about this. So I think the time has come. I don't think it's about a pandemic, and I fully believe that, and economics shows robust programming after any sort of pandemic or crisis in the world, those are the companies who have succeeded afterwards. So we're doing our part. We have scheduled some very robust programming, and I have a board of directors that has supported that. And I'm very proud of that. But we need to have the space so that we can continue to help in an economic way. I believe fully that we will have a huge economic impact on it. I won't continue, but thank you so much for letting me.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you everybody for showing up. We appreciate you, and I think your message has been sent quite clearly and directly today. So I thank you. Next up, 5.2. Pickleball facilities, Collingwood Pickleball Club. We have 2 very capable presenters today.
Own cheering section today.
Yes, you did.
Members of council, ladies and gentlemen, and enthusiastic pickleball players. Good afternoon. My name is Brenda Reetham, and I am the president of the Georgian Triangle Pickleball Club. I'm here representing our club and its board of directors to throw our enthusiastic support behind the construction of dedicated pickleball courts here in Collingwood. Pickleball. It's the sport with a funny name, which has gained popularity so quickly, it is now the fastest growing sport in North America. This sport is on track to grow 30% year over year, which in Canada would mean by the end of the decade, almost 1 million new players will pick up a paddle and start playing. What is pickleball? Well, at its core, it's a fun and exciting indoor-outdoor sport that combines the elements of tennis, badminton, and ping pong. Pickleball can be played by virtually anyone at any age and any ability. It makes it the perfect social, inclusive recreational sport. There are a number of wheelchair pickleball leagues around the country, and several elements of the game have been modified for persons with disabilities. All of the benefits of playing the game are too numerous to mention here, but suffice to say, It's an intergenerational, social, inclusive, and excellent for both physical and mental health. Study after study touts the benefits of regular exercise in a social environment and names pickleball as being ideal sport. You'll never hear more laughter during sport than you will during pickleball play. It's very competitive, but it's so much fun at the same time. It's also an extremely economical sport to play. You can pick up a paddle and a wiffle ball at Walmart and head off to play. That is if you have somewhere to go play. The Georgian Triangle Pickleball Club currently has over 300 members on its roster and a wait list of 75. We are a grassroots organization struggling to keep up with the demand. Frozen our membership and stop taking waitlist names as we simply cannot accommodate any more players on our roster. I receive emails weekly from people who want to join our club and play pickleball, but not everybody wants the organized round robin type of play that we offer. Some folks just want to grab their paddles, take their kids or grandkids out to play, but sadly in this community, there isn't that. As there are in neighboring communities of Thornbury and Wasaga Beach, each have their own dedicated courts. Our club operates out of the outdoor rink in Central Park, which is less than ideal. It's a cement surface, and the nets are kept in a locked box, so we set up and dismantle the nets at each of our play sessions. The rink surface is also obviously designed to hold water, so we lose many, many play days, as today, when it rains, and that water sits in large puddles on the courts. Proper pickleball courts, however, are designed to shed standing water and makes a much more enjoyable playing surface. Pickleball also used to be known as an older person's sport, but that's simply not the case anymore. In fact, on the pro circuit, the #1 ranked women's single player is 15 years old. My 14-year-old grandson picked up a paddle and loves every minute of the game. There sure aren't many competitive sports that grandmas and grandsons can play together, and even fewer, grandma comes out on top. My daughter is a teacher. She can request pickleball nets and paddles and balls from her board and teaches her students to play pickleball. And it's a game that she loves as well. Younger adults and kids are joining this sport in droves. In fact, the fastest growing demographic for pickleball players is 18 to 34 years of age. When I mention the pro circuit, you may not be aware that pickleball is not just recreational sport. There are countless opportunities for competitive tournament play as an amateur and as a professional. In fact, pickleball is now vying to be included as an Olympic sport. The kids starting out today as pickleball players could very well be playing internationally. We would love to host a tournament here in Collingwood, as many other communities do, but sadly, it's just not possible playing on an outdoor rink with temporary nets. A Collingwood tournament could easily draw in 300 players, each spending an average of about $400 on food and lodging, so it could be an economic boon to the town as well. In terms of space and play comparison, one tennis court is used by 2 or 4 players for at least an hour. That one tennis court space could house 2 pickleball courts with dozens of players rotating in and out. The pickleball games are much quicker, allowing for a larger rotation of players. Communities across Ontario have used a ratio of approximately 1 court per 4,000 residents. For the town of Collingwood, that would mean the construction of 5.5 courts, but let's just round that up to 6, okay? By comparison, Wasaga Beach, with a population similar to Collingwood's, has 4 dedicated pickleball courts. Thornbury, with a population of less than 3,000, has installed 4 new courts as of last year. So let's think like Thornbury, shall we? I play pickleball in Florida during the wintertime. I can show up at any number of dedicated courts in my area with a paddle in hand and be invited to play by total strangers. You would be hard-pressed to find one other sport where that's the case, but that's pickleball, and that's our dream for pickleball in Collingwood. We appreciate being given the opportunity to speak to you today and show our support for the creation of dedicated courts in Collingwood. Would love to partner with you and provide whatever input, expertise, and support we can during the planning and construction phase. Finally, I'd also like to invite you, if you haven't already done so, come out and try the sport with us. Throw on a pair of running shoes and come see for yourself what the hype is all about. Love to have you come and play with us. Bet you'd be hooked on the sport. All are. And we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. That was quite informative. Any questions from my colleagues? Mr. McLeod.
Thank you. Would 12 be enough?
Would 12 be enough? There are never enough pickleball courts, I will say that.
Would you accept 12?
We would gladly accept 12.
So in preparation for your presentation, I reached out to PRC, and apparently our plan is to include pickleball courts at the new park that is going in at the Wilson Sheffield Park out by Admiral School. And I think at this point, what they're discussing is the possibility, the maybe, of as many as 12.
Fabulous.
Design, I think, according to my notes, is underway this year and possibly construction underway next year.
Now, are you talking dedicated pickleball courts or are these tennis courts
Yeah,
that are used dual purpose?
As far as I understand it, they're dedicated, but I don't know. You know what? We should probably ask the head of PRC, not me. Can we invite the director? Oh, can we invite Director Culver to come and play with us on this? Pardon the pun.
Good afternoon, Dean. Would you like to bring some enlightenment to this and probably make the chambers go crazy in positivity for once over the last 8 years? No pressure. No pressure.
So we do have, as Acting Deputy Mayor McLeod has mentioned, we do have a design process underway for the Wilson Sheffield Park adjacent to Admiral School. Very early indications are that we may be able to accommodate as many as 12 pickleball courts. It would be in a shared facility. So, but again, design isn't complete. So the premise that we brought to council a few months ago was that, first of all, that the park would have to be adjusted in thinking from a neighborhood park to a community park. The difference being that things like washrooms would be included in the design to ensure that, you know, the appropriate facilities for somebody who are treating the park as a destination are at hand. But that the premise behind it was that we had a few communities in need, namely pickleball, basketball, and tennis, and that the idea would be for us to maximize the efficiency and use of the space by incorporating those three sports. Having said that, we're again in the design process, and I will say quite early because we've had competing priorities in the first part of this year. But the plan is to get that design process done by the end of this year. And through that design process, we'll be reaching out to the public for consultation. So there'll be an opportunity for comment on everything from which courts, how many courts should be dedicated, how many courts should be dedicated or prioritized for a specific sport. Lots of opportunity to dialogue and get a design complete that at least offers a compromise position prior to the construction that we hope to engage next year.
Thank you, sir. These pickleballers are a hard crowd to read because I didn't see a lot of smiles. So now I'm seeing smiles. God bless you for taking pity on the chair. Anything else? Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. I walk by the outdoor rink at Central Park periodically. Do you also not play inside the curling club in the summer?
Used to be
Oh.
able to, but that's problematic because we'd love to be able to play inside when the weather is not conducive to for us playing outside. But that turns out to be a last minute decision. It starts to rain in the morning. Now we have to try and track down someone with a key to open up to let us in. Had asked that question, but it's effective. Allow last minute that facility.
Okay, so you're not in there at all then?
We are.
Okay, thank you. I didn't understand that. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Yep.
Thank you. Through to our deputy, just to clarify for the public, everything that you spoke of from a micro perspective, so for Collingwood, this is specific to your club. This has nothing to do with swing courts. Is that correct? That's a separate private entity?
That's a separate private entity,
Okay.
correct. We have a relationship with the swing, but they are.
I appreciate it. My only comment, and I hope it's taken in the way it is intended, and that is, and I say this with the utmost respect, looking at sort of an older demographic with us today, and that is that Director Culver and I were at, and the acting deputy mayor, at the opening and ribbon cutting for the new facility out at Fisher Field, which has been long awaited to accommodate the needs of our growing soccer club. And we just had a conversation about the evolution of the community and things that are available. And the reason I referenced the audience is that when you think of your own childhood and the programming that was available or not relative to what people have today, and you know, even my own children who are 19 and 17, when they were younger, taking up sport, things like pickleball didn't exist here in the community, rugby didn't exist, and yet that has taken off as a result of the success of the Raptors. That programming has taken off. You know, the resurgence of the Blue Jays, minor ball has had an uptick. You'll note I'm not referencing the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Thank you. I would cut you off right away if you did.
But it's a great problem as the community continues to evolve, as our demographics are changing. You know, our director who's on the call today he really has got some difficult decisions, and the next council certainly will have difficult decisions as to how do we spread the wealth, so to speak, to accommodate all of these growth. And I'm thrilled that you asked the question, Deputy Mayor McLeod, as to the possibility, because that would be a nice addition to that area of the community for sure. Anyway, great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's back to me. So you have 300 members and 75 on a waiting list, and which is fantastic. Is there any membership fee to this? So you use the word partner. So the thing is, if we can, as today we have a request from the people before you, to partner with us is a great word for me. So I will let you answer my question.
Yes. Charge for a summer membership, begins in May, ends sometime around the end of September. $100. And we now offer play 7 days a week, organized play round robin style. If you wish to have an annual membership, it's $300. It is more expensive because for us to play in the wintertime, we're renting court space at Montera,
Yes.
tennis, at Swing.
Okay.
So, and obviously the costs are,
Yes, ma'am.
are excessive in the wintertime versus the summer. So we've endeavored very, very diligently to try and keep those membership fees full,
Yes.
so that we are accessible to the greater population.
To everybody. So just so we have a lot of great things in our community. We have the skate park, we have the lawn bowling, we have our ball diamonds, we have our hockey rink. The money that you raise through those, do they go to trophies? Do they go to organization? Do they strictly just go to rent in the wintertime?
Yeah, the bulk certainly is rentals for time.
Okay.
And we have other expenses. We're replacing the temporary nets, which, because we're breaking them down, setting them up all of the time, they don't last very long. Buying balls, where the other, we have insurance that we have to pay. Well,
Good. So I just want to make sure that
we run a very
tight ship. So I want to make sure that the public doesn't think I'm not asking you for money. I believe in active being active and getting out there and bettering our community. And at 300 members, I would say that you double or triple some of the other things that we have in our community. So congratulations for that. I'm willing to take you up on anything. I honestly thought this wonderful group of people were here for the arts, which I would have been an actor. I just one thing lacking, skill, and so I'm not good at that. But I am pretty athletic, so I would love to get out and try and get beat by each and every one of you, which is fine with me. But thank you for that. When would be a good time for maybe anyone on council or anyone in the public just to maybe show up and watch the game, view the game, or with me in mind, get laughed at for failing?
We do have the contract for the outdoor rink every morning from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So we're typically there between 9 and 11.
And people can kind of show up and just ask questions. I know that you've limited your numbers because it's
correct.
Right.
Right. And we don't allow drop-in play per se. We would make an exception for council.
God bless you.
All of our members sign a waiver. Don't just have members of the public that can just drop in and play with us, but we certainly encourage them to stop by, ask us questions.
And that is Monday to Friday.
Monday to Friday. No, through the weekend. 7 days a week. Yes, Saturday and Sunday now. Yes.
7 days a week. So I am holding you up for 2 more seconds. This is the benefit of being the chair. When my committee members are like, Bob, shut up. I will not see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. as there's a 100% chance of rain.
Yes.
I will see you, and I will try to convince my vice chair Thursday morning. We don't have wiffle ball paddles.
Have some extras. Yeah, we have plenty.
Well, then we will see you sometime. We have rain for the anyways. Thank you so much for your presentation. Your numbers speak for themselves.
Thank you.
And it was great that the vice chair brought back something that was brought to us through Parks and Rec. They see the need for it. They've listened. So please get involved when they put out for call for help and make sure that you are represented quite handily. Thank you so much. We appreciate you and enjoy your day. Thank you. All right, moving on. You're more than welcome to stay for the business licensing bylaw update. It's quite no. All right. Well, we will just wait till you leave the chambers before we go any further. (6.1) C 2022 business licensing update license committee. Is that going to be through you, Clerk Almus?
Yes, it is, Chair Madigan.
As I said, we might just wait 2 seconds for this bustling crowd to head out to the pickleball courts.
It's a hard act to follow.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Madigan. So we don't have a formal presentation today. It's just a brief update. Once we completed our review of the business licensing food vendor program, we didn't take a look at the full components of the bylaw itself that address the licensing committee. So the clerk department is responsible for business licensing, and we only license a select number of businesses. The Municipal Act does lay out powers around licensing, which includes the power to refuse to grant, revoke, or suspend a license. As this can result in conflict between the licensing officer and the licensee, most municipalities allow for a system of appeals should a licensee be revoked, suspended, or application being refused. In Collingwood, that power is granted to the License Committee, which at present is the Collingwood Police Services Board. The Police Services Board is established under the Police Services Act, which is broadly focused on determining policing priorities and polices policies within the community, and does not have a close connection to business licensing beyond enforcement powers. Another inherent conflict with utilizing the Police Services Board, the police services are also permitted to enforce provisions of the business licensing bylaw as well. To date, the town has not received an appeal of a business license, actually since I've been here for 19 years. And the Police Services Board has never been called to adjudicate or address any matter pertaining to the business licensing program that we have in place. Staff are recommending that Police Services Board no longer be the licensing committee with the adjudication powers, instead being transferred to another body. So we did address 3 areas that were considered within the report, and the one that's being recommended is the Committee of Adjustment and Property Standards Appeal Committee. They are a quasi-judicial body established by council and that is familiar with hearing applications for minor planning matters and property standards orders. Members are appointed by council based on expertise and decision-making and are familiar with interpreting legislation and providing rulings. Committee members are bound by a code of conduct. Appeals would be included in the committee's regular body of work and would be provided to council for final approval. Council could also act as the adjudicating body. So council may wish to name itself the licensing committee and hear all appeals directly without any body in between the licensing officer or the licensing committee. Any necessary appeals would be included on a public agenda, and the licensee and applicant and staff would need to present the evidence before council to make the ruling. Again, if this was the case, and this is what is recommended by the standing committee or council, staff would provide the necessary educational components regarding the rulings and requirements of a business licensing bylaw. Some municipalities also do not provide an appeal body. The licensing officer has the final say, or another member of staff has the final say. Staff are not recommending this option, as an appeals process allows for fairness and transparency and removes any risk of bias or conflict. So at this point, we are recommending the Committee of Adjustment act as our licensing body. In addition to that, they are our only body that is compensated by the town, and they would be equally compensated for their work should any appeals be received.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that presentation. I know that there's nobody in the audience, but is there anyone on Zoom or at home that would like to speak to this?
Thank you, Chair Madigan. We do have a number of attendees participating remotely. Anyone as present would like to address the staff report, please press the raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And there is no interest at this time, Chair Madigan.
Excellent. So now we're going to close the public input. I'm going to ask for a mover and seconder. That staff report, C 2022-21 business licensing bylaw update license committee be received. Moved by Councillor Berman. I'm going to look to you because you. So we want to separate these out, but I was waiting for somebody else to bring that up. So I'll do that now. So just so the people at home don't think that we look too confused, it's me that's confused, not our acting mayor. What would you like to do, sir?
I'm comfortable with what is presented, so
okay.
I don't have an issue.
Okay.
Read in.
Vice Chair McLeod?
Sorry, have we had a second?
No, we haven't. We've had a mover to receive it, and we haven't had a seconder. So seconded by receive it. All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. And the second part, and that council enact a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2010-064 business licensing bylaw to appoint the Committee of Adjustments Property Standards Committee as the license committee. So I'm looking to our vice chair. But we have a mover in Deputy Mayor, Acting Mayor Hull, seconded by. So we're looking for a friendly amendment. So we have to get it on the table to add the friendly amendment. So seconded by Vice Chair McLeod, and now Vice Chair McLeod.
Thank you. So for a thing that hasn't been required in 19 years, I don't know that I am in favor of putting it onto a committee or anybody else. I would move the amendment that that council enact a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2010-064 business licensing bylaw to appoint council as the license committee rather than the Committee of Adjustment.
And you have a seconder in Councillor Berman.
Great.
Excellent. And would you like to speak to that?
I think I just did.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Yeah, if I can speak to it before we call. So I like that it comes before the public and for council. And unfortunately, with misinformation of every day, that the public can see it really debated in front of us. And then they can see whether anything is nefarious. Go ahead, Clerk Almus.
So, excuse me, Chair Madigan. So the motion as was presented was to have the amending bylaw appoint the Committee of Adjustment Property Standards bylaw. So we're not going to hear that component, and you're directly going to put on that the bylaw, amending bylaw, be identify council as a licensing body. Is that correct? For the
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All those in favor? Oh, Acting Mayor Hull?
Through you to our clerk, are there any issues from a procedural standpoint as to having this move to council? Deciding body?
Certainly, thank you for the question, Acting Mayor Hull. The one item why it's a little bit more rare that council is, you're put in a position of publicly hearing evidence from your staff and then evidence from your appellant, and having to make a decision on which process. Again, depending on how busy your meetings are and whether this is something that the council wants to deal with. It's completely up to council's decision if you want to be that adjudicating body. And again, it's meetings of Committee of Adjustment are available on YouTube. They're not recorded, so there is a little bit more transparency in a council meeting. I think those are likely the biggest components. We do have, we expect to have within the next month and a half an appeal come forward. So we are being proactive in bringing this before you now. Some things to consider.
So just before I go to Councillor Berman, so Acting Mayor, so are you suggesting, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, that we vote on it here and it either does not get a recommendation by our committee and go to council and then we can do the amendment?
No, I was just simply wanting to clarify, this is a staff recommendation, and we've now tabled something that is contrary to the staff's recommendation.
Yep.
So I'm just looking to see, one, if staff are comfortable with what's been recommended, and then if I may ask a follow-up question.
For certain, yeah.
The follow-up question would be, if a matter goes before the Committee of Adjustment, whether it's pertaining to the licensing or whether it's a property standard issue, and the person who has gone before the opinion rendered by the Committee of Adjustment is not in their favor, what's the recourse for that particular party, whether it's an individual or business?
So the requirements under the Committee of Adjustment, so under the Planning Act provisions, and the items that they adjudicate under the Property Standards Bylaw, and under if they were provided the powers under the licensing as a licensing committee, all vary. So different components can be appealed to the OLT at the Committee of Adjustment. If they become the licensing body, it ends with them. It can't be appealed any further, so they can't appeal the decision of their committee to council, the appellant or licensee. That's the question.
It is, thank you. So just, if I may.
Yep.
So if somebody goes before what's recommended here, the Committee of Adjustment, and and I'm specifically now speaking to the licensing aspect, and the decision that's rendered by Committee of Adjustment is contrary to what they are advocating for, you're saying that it stops at that point.
I have my business licensing expert behind that's a little bit concerned about the response here. So as my researched expert in this field, I would defer to
maybe
to
just
his input.
rephrase the question.
Yeah.
Yes, is what's been tabled is to move it from Committee of Adjustment to council. My point that I'm trying to ask is, if it goes to Committee of Adjustment and a contrary decision is made for the person making the application, do they still have the opportunity to appeal to council?
I'm looking at my coordinator of clerk services, and the answer would be yes.
That's my understanding. The bylaw would have a recourse in the sense that any decision is from the licensing committee, wherever that be, it goes to council, and they are allowed to squash or quash, I should say, or make any changes to a decision prior to final approval.
We'll make sure. I'll look into this a little further as well. So if that's the case, there'll be an amendment component to provide that clarification in the report when it comes forward on June 20.
Councillor Berman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just speaking in favor of what Mayor McLeod has put on the table. I think there's been periods over this term where decisions have been made by bodies that aren't council, the Heritage Committee, library, whatever, and there's been confusion with the public talks with that. No, we don't get committee of adjustment minutes here. We really don't. Council aren't that process. The house next door to me actually had a committee of adjustment sign popped up on Friday, I think, and ironically, thing in the mail today letting me know what it was about. I don't have any issues with it as it sits, but if the committee of adjustment were to check this action, it's lie with us. So I would rather that we made the decision.
Okay. Yeah, well, Deputy Mayor, we're acting. I know. Keith?
I appreciate what my colleague is saying, but the Committee of Adjustment and Heritage, for example, are two legislated bodies.
Okay, so please continue.
I based on what you just said, sir, I thought what you said was that we could circumvent bringing the issue here. And what I'm saying is you can't. It's a legislative body as it relates to property standard issue. Now, licensing is a different issue, but it's an established committee, and I think that having the opportunity to go there and enhance sort of the work that they're doing on behalf of council, and as long as the individual or individuals still have an opportunity to appeal should the decision not be, I'm referring specific to licensing, then the process would work.
Okay, so we've had healthy debate. If there's anything more to be added, and I'm looking at Clerk Almus, has what has been moved by our vice chair and our committee member allowable procedurally?
Certainly, if there's not a mover and seconder to put the staff recommendation on the floor, then if the motion that's going on the floor is to make the amendment to be council as the appeal committee, that can be in order.
Okay, so I will then go back and ask if for the original thing, if we have a mover and a seconder. If we do not have a seconder, then it cannot go on the floor.
Correct.
Excellent. Can I get a mover and seconder for the original motion moved by?
Well, my apologies. It was already put on the floor. I moved it, seconded it, get on the floor. Then the amendment was put on the floor.
Okay, so if it gets voted down, then an amendment can come in?
Certainly. So it wouldn't be considered an amendment because it's also
Brand new.
varies to the motion. You can't make an amendment that is contrary to what the original is. Yeah.
Right. So we're just going to vote on it, and if it fails, can a member bring something forward? Excellent. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. So now I'm looking. Vice Chair McLeod, would you like to restate it?
Yes, please. So my motion would be that council enact a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2010-064 business licensing bylaw to appoint council as the licensing committee.
So you have a seconder within. Excellent. That being said, we've had a lot of great debate on this. All those in favor? Opposed? Duly noted. Thank you very much. 6.2, CCS 2022-08, Collingwood Stream Health Urban Biological Characterization Report. Do we have anybody that is going to?
We have our climate change specialist, Nicole Yardy.
Hello, Miss Yardy. I have to put my glasses on for that screen. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Madigan, Vice Chair McLeod, and members of committee. Today, I'm here to present the background and speak to the work that Collingwood staff and the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, or NVCA, have put into monitoring the health of our urban streams. Before jumping in, I'd like to acknowledge that Ian Okdekin is the watershed monitoring specialist from the NVCA. He is here with us today to answer any technical questions at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. I'll first walk you through what's been completed to date. So staff interest in the health of Collingwood's urban streams first began in 2018 when the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority deemed the status of the urban portions of Black Ash Creek and Pretty River as impaired or very poor health through the NVCA Blue Mountains Watershed Health Check. In 2020, upon town staff request, the NVCA conducted fieldwork to complete an enhanced water quality monitoring report to gain a better understanding of the impaired designation of the two urban streams. The final report was received in January of 2021 and is attached in Appendix A. The results of the report supported the findings of the Blue Mountain Watershed Health Check and further analyze the characteristics of the different sections of both urban waterways. Later on in 2021, the NVCA submitted the Collingwood Urban Biological Characterization Project proposal in Appendix B of the staff report, proposing that a biological characterization in the streams be used to monitor the health of Black Ash Creek and Pretty River from 2022 to 2026 in order to lay the groundwork for potential future stream rehabilitation efforts. With the support of town staff, the NVCA conducted some benthic microinvertebrate sampling in Black Ash Creek in line with their project proposal last month, so in May of 2022, and we expect to receive a memo or report detailing the findings by the end of this year. Next slide, please. The Urban Biological Characterization Project aims to discover the health of our urban streams and to further educate residents on how human actions influence the environment. Studying the streams provides the town with baseline metrics that can be used to monitor stream health as the urban landscape changes and will help identify any future restoration actions that should be considered. The analysis section of the staff report details and describes the importance of the urban streams as well as the threats that the streams face. On a high level, streams are important to provide habitat for wildlife, a connection to the harbor, flood control, and they provide residents with a connection to nature. Some of the threats to stream health include climate change, decreasing canopy cover, contamination, and pollution. I won't go into detail on the importance and threats of this during this presentation because I know some council members have a long history with the NVCA's work, but I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. Moving on to next steps, the town of Collingwood, in collaboration with the NVCA, will work together to implement the communications plan to convey the project to the public. And staff is also recommending that this report be sent to the town of Blue Mountains, the township of Clearview, and the municipality of Grey Highlands. Because waterways go beyond municipal boundaries and Collingwood streams are influenced by activities happening upstream. By working collaboratively with our neighbors, we will broaden the scope of the work, but also be better positioned and equipped to implement protection, restoration, and educational projects, which will have the most positive impacts for the full length of the streams. Next slide, please. And thank you for your time this afternoon. I'm happy to answer any questions about the staff report. And again, we have Ian from the NVCA to answer any technical questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hardy. Appreciate you. I'm seeing no one in the audience. I'm going to look to our clerk to see if there is anyone at home or via a phone that would like to ask any questions.
Thank you, Chair Madigan. Again, those interested in addressing the staff report, please press the raise your hand feature. There's no one at this time,
Okay.
Chair Madigan.
Wonderful. That'll officially close public input. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Vice Chair McLeod, seconded by Acting Mayor Hall, that CCS 2022-08 Collingwood Stream Health Urban Biological Characterization Project. That staff report CCS of 2022-08 that Collingwood Stream Urban Biological Project be received, and that council continue to support the efforts of the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority to discover the health of Collingwood's urban streams, and further that council forwards the staff report to the town of the Blue Mountains, the township of Clearview, the municipality of Grey Highlands to gauge interest in collaborating on Blue Mountain watershed monitoring, rehabilitation efforts as recommended by the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. Any discussion from our committee? I'm looking right at you as the chair of the NVCA. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thank you. This report, and I thank Ms. Yardy for bringing it to us. And this report is yet another fine example of the important work that is done by conservation authorities Ontario-wide, and not just saying no to planning proposals and making people angry, but actually important work for the future health of the province. And I will be happy to support continuing this work. And I know that we were going to be dealing staff to staff with the NVCA staff and the Town of Collingwood staff as we work through the changes to the Conservation Authorities Act and the Memorandum of Understanding, which we already have in place for planning, but which we are going to need to be put in place for the Category 1, 2, and 3 actions that the CA is currently working its way through, categorizing, and I look forward to seeing those reports come forward as well. So thank you for this.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Acting Mayor Hull?
Thank you. Through you to staff, to Ms. Yardy, just a technical question. Ms. Yardy, you referenced Clearview, Grey Highlands, and the town of Blue Mountains. Does this report also go directly to the Grey Sauble Conservation, and or do they have any input as to the work that we're doing in collaboration with the NVCA?
Ms. Yardy?
I can begin answering the question, and maybe Ian can jump in if I miss anything. We didn't put in the recommendation to send this report to the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority. It can be included. The 2 streams that this project in the past has focused on are Black Ash Creek and Pretty River, which I believe fall within the NVCA and not Grey Sauble. But Ian, is there anything else you can add to that?
Correct. The 2 water courses that we are looking at specifically in this project, Pretty River and Black Ash Creek, do not have any jurisdictional overlap with the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority. So despite being up on top of the escarpment in Grey Highlands and Town of Blue Mountains, while we could share it with Grey Sauble Conservation Authority, they have no regulatory or jurisdictional matters over these water courses. So we could pass it for information if needed.
Excellent. Seeing none. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. 6.3, the revisions of the salary administration new positions policies. I will again, looking up at the screen, Ms. McQuaig, our HR director, and I believe acting CAO this week. Take it away, please, and thank you.
Thank you, Chair Madigan. No, Treasurer Quinlan is the acting CAO this week.
Oh, well, sorry for giving you the bump in responsibility, but not pay. I apologize.
Anyway, thank you so much, and through you to the committee. So what's being provided for the committee's consideration today are revised HR policies B05, non-union salary administration, and B03, new positions. So following the completion of the non-union compensation review in November of 2021, the applicable human resources policies are being updated to reflect the process followed and incorporate the recommendations identified. So this grouping that you see before you today is the first group that we are bringing forward. So firstly, HR policy B05, non-union salary administration, has been updated to outline the town's pay policy for the non-union positions and reflect the methodology used in the compensation review project. So it includes the market competitiveness, and the comparator municipalities are listed, how the salary grid will be administered, mechanisms for instances when a pay rate is outside of the approved grid, and roles and responsibilities under the policy. We also reviewed existing HR Policy Bo4 Job Evaluation, which outlines the method the organization used for the previous compensation review, which was completed in 2013. In updating it to reflect the job evaluation process that we followed in 2021, we're recommending that this document be rescinded as a policy and instead recast as a procedure, as the contents of the document are procedural or administrative in nature. So that being, if a position is going to be reevaluated, here's the steps to follow. HR Policy Bo3, new positions, outlines the authority to approve new positions within the organization's approved budget. And for this one, components of the existing policy document have also been extracted into a separate procedure document that outlines the process to follow in situations where a need for a new, altered, or reduced staffing is identified. So, for example, the procedure mentions things like staffing requirements will be forecast during the annual budget process and what information will be included in that request. And that request received outside of the annual budget process will be handled through the usual council approval process. So we are working on, or the organization headed up by Clerk Services is working on a rules framework that would differentiate what's a policy, which is overarching statements, versus a procedure, which is, to accomplish X, you do A, B, C. So that's why you will see that the new policy documents are more condensed than the previous ones, but a separate procedure to capture all of the steps to follow. Those have been created as the guide. So that's it for my highlights at this point, and open to questions from the committee.
Excellent. Once again, looking to the clerk to see if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair Madigan. Again, raise your hand feature if you'd like to address this staff report. There's no one at this time, Chair.
Excellent. So I would like to get a mover and seconder on this, please. Moved by Mayor Hall, seconded by Councillor Berman. That staff report CCS 2022-09 revisions to the salary administration and new positions policies be received, and that a revised HR policies B05 non-union salary administration and B03 new positions be adopted as presented, and that HR policy B-04 job evaluation be rescinded and recast as the procedure. And I have Vice Chair McLeod requested to speak. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Madigan, to Director McQuaig. My question regarding this report has to do with a concern that I have towards the end of the report with regard to who can hire students and who can hire folks. And I know that through the course of doing the budget process, we often will receive requests from departments about staffing increases and or staffing changes, and I wonder what the changes contained within this report what impact they will have on our budgetary process going forward. Does that take the hiring of students, et cetera, out of the hands of council? Chair Madigan.
Director McQuaig.
Through the chair to, I guess, Vice Chair McLeod. No. So the process is that all permanent, new permanent full-time employee positions are approved by council. What we are looking for is positions in any other classifications. So whether they be part-time, student, contract, or seasonal, or alterations to existing positions would be approved by the CAO, but certainly would still be within the overall approved budget that council has already approved for the year. So it would be smaller items. So whether it's two student positions versus 3, but still within the envelope of funds set aside.
Thank you. That satisfies my concern.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. 6.4, PRC 2022 Harbour Parking and Launching Correction. I will look towards Department Head Culver. Dean, please go ahead. And Dean, if I step out, I will pass the chair over to Vice Chair McLeod right now. I have a 3:15 phone call with my doctor. So I have to take that because I can wait for them, but they can never wait for me. So I'm going to step out right now and leave it in the hands of the committee.
Director Culver.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is an adjustment to a report that Council received a while ago regarding the implementation of paid parking at the Harbour in the waterfront area, and also with respect to the fees and services bylaw approval that included an adjustment at that time, and the report is asking for an adjustment back, and I'll explain why. So just a quick reminder that the reason why we approached some of these issues at the Harbour was because of the untenable traffic position that was creating public hazards on Heritage Drive and in the marina parking lot, and even to some extent at Millennium Park. Given the success of the program at Sunset Point, it was recommended that we implement the paid parking condition with residents of Collingwood being able to receive free parking, and that similar to Sunset Point, that residents of the surrounding 3 municipalities would have access to a reduced fee seasonal parking opportunity. We did implement this. Prior to it being implemented, we were receiving lots of notification via email and other means regarding non-residents and concerns they had about accessing the Collingwood Harbour. We knew that we needed to take this step to move forward to affect public safety measures. Having said that, we also had in the back of our minds that that we may have overcorrected, that we may have swung the pendulum a little too far, as it were. So we were prepared for the fact that upon seeing the first few weeks and understanding sort of what the impacts were, that it may be important to dial it back to, again, not impose upon people inordinately. So what I'm here today to do is recommend that two things. One is that we reinstate the seasonal boat launch pass for non-residents of Collingwood. It's been something that they've had access to in the past. It was removed this year again to hopefully affect a bit of a more controlled parking approach in the marina parking lot. And we're seeing that there is a lot less traffic in the marina parking lot. So we're happy to sort of be able to make the recommendation that we go back to non-resident seasonal boat launch passes for non-residents. And the other change that we're asking for in the report is related to a really interesting anomaly of sort of regional lines where Grey County meets Clearview, the one municipality, I guess, or not municipality, but settlement area that falls sort of within a 20 to 25 minute drive of the Harbour, but that isn't covered by any of the three municipalities as Singhampton. So we're making a recommendation to expand the radius and allow for Singhampton to be included in it, given that there are a number of individuals who have indicated they have that they consider Collingwood to be their home port, and they would like to have access. And again, given that we've seen a good first part of the season in terms of traffic and parking management, we're happy to extend the non-resident or recommend the extension of the non-resident seasonal parking pass to include Singhampton. And so I think that sort of covers the nuts and bolts of the report. If there are any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you. And I'll turn to the clerk to see whether there is anyone in our virtual audience who is interested in speaking to this report. I know that we've had some very big interest from message boards for fisher folk.
Thank you, Vice Chair McLeod. this point, there doesn't appear anybody interested in addressing this staff report.
Thank you. And so I will ask for a mover and a seconder for staff report PRC 22-06 Harbour Parking and Launching Correction be received, and that council approves the re-implementation of the visitor seasonal boat launch pass and extension of the radius allowable for non-residents to purchase $100 seasonal parking passes to include Singhampton resident addresses. Do I have a mover and a seconder? I have a mover in Acting Mayor Hull, seconder in Councillor Berman, and I will relinquish the chair to Chair Madigan.
Finish it off.
Okay, great.
You
then.
took us this far. I apologize. Very short call, but thank you for indulging me.
Questions or comments from members of the committee? Seeing none, I have one, and to Director Culver. So as I mentioned earlier, we here in Collingwood have been the subject of some rather fierce discussions on some message boards which are used by fisher folk who come to our town and launch their boats and park as well, because there's a fair amount of consternation at what once was a $10 launch or $8 launch fee and a $0 parking, and now is a $10 launch fee and possibly as much as $50 in parking. Can you speak to how this would affect those people so that I can give them an answer?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So as it stands right now, for example, and a lot of the concerns that we've received also is that, as you've mentioned, a person who formerly paid $8 to come use the boat launch and then have free parking, now we'll be looking at a fee of roughly $60 because it's a $10 boat launch fee per event, and then $50 is the maximum fee per day. So that was the concern, was sort of the massive jump, I would say, in their ability to launch, the financial cost of launching per event, and I understand that, and we understood that when we were making the recommendation, but we needed to have a way to both, prioritize the taxpayers of the town of Collingwood who are subsidizing the harbour, its facilities, and all of its activities, but also to, create some control in a finite space for traffic. So now that we're here and we're seeing what the effects are of, as we move out of COVID, as we see the season unfold, and we're noticing that the parking lot is relatively empty, and the controls that we put in place in addition to the fees, such as the no parking areas and whatnot, are working effectively. The opportunity for us to go back to what we used to be, which is a non-resident could purchase $100. So if, let's say, a fisher person goes out 60 times a year, that makes a substantial drop in that per launch fee charge. They'd still be responsible for the parking, but if they're within the what we're describing as a 20 to 25 minute radius, which includes Wasaga, Clearview, and the town of Blue Mountains, and with this report would include Singhampton to sort of complete the circle, they would be able to purchase for $100. What would charge them what would be a $50 per event. They'd now be able to sort of divide that by the number of times they go out and see a much reduced rate. So again, there's some interest in both making this not a punishing or draconian measure. The other influence that we've had is from local business who are seeing less non-resident fisher people in the community and spending, and we wanted to acknowledge and support local business by not being, again, punishing people who live outside of the community from having access reasonably.
Thank you so much, and good on you for recognizing and pivoting quickly. I appreciate that. Any other questions from the committee? Acting Mayor Hall.
Thank you, through you to Director Culver. So one, I just simply would like to piggyback on the comment that was just made, and that is to acknowledge my appreciation for making this change. And it sort of dovetails into the question I have. I think that the concern was, one, that there was an increase in cost, and then secondly, that there's an increase in cost across the board as it relates to everything that we're doing. And it had a trickle-down effect as to, spending patterns patterns, et cetera. With fuel costs the way they are, will you be, and I apologize for not maybe reaching out to you in advance, but will there be either anecdotally or professionally, maybe over the course of the summer, to do any type of survey work to get a better appreciation that maybe the downturn in our parking situation is, has been significantly impacted by the fact that fuel, not only for the vehicle to get to the parking lot, but to actually operate the boat, gone through the roof, and that maybe, next year, the year after, typically, we see, a return to kind of sort of a normal use when things like fuel and other things come back to what we would anticipate to be more of a palatable financial number.
Director Culver?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. It's a really good question, and it's a really interesting question because there are a number of influences that we sort of, I would say at this point anecdotally surmise. Some of it is fuel cost. Some of it is that there was a huge upswing in the purchase of watercraft over the last while. Will that be sustained? We're seeing some places of the industry that it's tapering off to some extent, at least some forecast or indications that it might be. We're looking at a number of different influencers that might determine exactly how this year goes. And I think what we're doing right now is just trying to collect all available data. We haven't taken a formalized approach yet, simply because of capacities and cost to do that. But I do think it's going to be really, really good idea for us to keep our ear to the ground because another fact that we know is that the growth in the community itself, the growth of Collingwood itself, has added to the traffic in the harbour, at the boat launch, and in the marina. Our waiting list at the first flips is in the neighborhood of 200 right now, which is the highest it's ever been. So we have a lot of sort of observation to do to try and figure out, what are the pressures and what are the ways that we need to adjust and continue to pivot the organization of a really ever-changing landscape. And another big influencer will be the outcome of the grain terminals program and how that's going to affect Heritage Drive and Millennium Park in terms of uses. And we have a Heritage Drive study going on right now to determine the road and what kinds of needs will the road have going forward. So there are a great number of influencers and a great number of influences on water use that we have to observe and take a look at over time. It's a great question for us to consider looking at a more formalized methodology, and I'll take that away because I don't think that's a bad thought at all. It's something that I think probably should be looking at going forward, and so you may see me back in front of council with a request to support that idea as well.
Anything further, Acting Mayor?
This is if I may, the number 200 is significant in terms of the waiting list, and I'll just pose the question, no answer, please. And that is, do we have a sense, and could that something that be investigated as to a person maybe who is on our waiting list? Do we know if perhaps they also are on the list for Southwinds, Thornbury, Meaford, etc.? And therefore, is that number 200 unique to Collingwood, or is it 200 that's maybe a broader berth across the watershed?
All right. With that, I will call the vote on receiving this report. Yeah, we're not going to let you answer that. He said not to. Unless you have an answer, Director Culver.
Just if I may, Chair, really very quickly, we have done a rationalization of the existing list. So it was over 200 before we went back through the list. Our coordinator went to great pains to kind of validate. So we do have a sense that the list is sort of Collingwood centric at this point, I would say. We also will continue to do this and are looking at different programs that will help rationalize that waiting list over the longer term. So, for example, should there be a fee to be on the waiting list, which would help to eliminate people who don't even own a boat at this point, for example, or who have, are on it for the sake of, interest, but not intention. So thanks for the question. And I'm sorry I answered it against your wishes, but I wanted to let you know that it's not something that we hadn't been working on or thinking of as we go through this strange time.
my thanks. And the reason I said not to answer simply was because I didn't ask in advance and I didn't want to put you on the spot. But thank you very much for the thorough answer. I appreciate it.
Okay, and then with that, we will call the question. And all those in favor? And none opposed. And I will relinquish the chair to the chair.
Thank you very much. Moving on to reports and minutes of other committees. We are looking that the minutes of various committees and boards provided be received and recommendations contained there within. Is there anything that somebody would like pulled for discussion? Vice Chair McLeod?
I have things to pull for discussion, but not necessarily for a change in direction.
Okay, so we're going to put it on the table, and then excellent. So we're going to get a mover and seconder. Moved by Vice Chair McLeod, seconded by Acting Mayor Hall. That 7.1 Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes, May 19th, 2022. 7.2 Collingwood Downtown BIA regular meeting, April 28th, 2022. Annual General Meeting, May 18th. 2022 and special meeting May 18th, 2022. 7.3 Museum Advisory Committee minutes May 19th, 2022, and 7.4 I apologize, Trails and Active Transportation Advisory minutes May 12th. Any discussion from the public? No. Any questions or comments from the committee? Vice Chair McLeod.
Thank you. And I have some questions regarding the Collingwood Downtown BIA Board of Management minutes from the 28th of April, I believe, and also from the 18th of May, although I've forgotten exactly which ones it was. But I've actually advised BIA General Manager Nicholson that these questions are coming.
Perfect.
So, and I know she's in attendance for another matter later in this meeting, so perhaps we could invite her to take questions, or I can turn to our council representative on the BIA as well. I'm sure they're both capable of answering these questions.
Chair Madigan, she is present. She would just have to turn her video momentarily.
Well, we'll take this time upon reflection of the anticipating questions from Vice Chair McLeod. Informative, direct, and educational are what we are going to focus on.
Well, and with
and we are going to give Ms. Nicholson maybe a few minutes, and if not, then we will look towards our rep, if that is okay. Yay. Welcome, General Manager Nicholson. Thank you so much. So we have a couple questions from Vice Chair McLeod, and I look forward to your answers. Marion, please go ahead.
Thank you. And through the chair, Manager Nicholson, my questions are regarding a couple of the minutes and the references that are made to the garden master plan and the operationalization of some of the items contained therein. And I just wonder if you could maybe walk me through the timelines of when the BIA first saw this report and what sorts of things that are already contained in it have been done prior to it coming to council.
Well, this report was commissioned by the BIA. It was in our future plan in our 2020 presentation to council and our 2021 presentation. We went through an RFP process through the town's procurement officer. Included in that development of the RFP was town staff Wendy Martin, as well as works manager and the CAO. And it was basically to create a plan that the BIA developed, but to give to the town that gave an overall plan for all the garden areas that had been developed through the 2010 reconstruction. We added parking lot gardens. We did the First Street reconstruction and added gardens, and the Hume Street reconstruction and added gardens, but there was no overall master plan to guide the town and how to really manage all of this green space within the downtown. So the BIA invested in the plan, but certainly the plan itself, as we went through the RFP, developed a contract, which was, there were 5 applications to the RFP. And part of the decision committee, through the direction with Rose Hewitson, our procurement officer, Wendy Martin was involved, as well as a couple of BIA board members and myself, that made the final decision on the contractor. And the town staff, both Works, Green Space, and ourselves, worked with the consultant through the process, and all of us approved the final plan.
Wonderful, thank you. And as a follow up to that, from the meeting that was held on April the 28th, there's an item that talks about a grant that has been received to do some of the work.
That's right.
In the garden plan, somewhere around glasses, $280,000. Yeah.
Right. I mean, just to give you some background, this plan had been, and right in the contract, it was the consultants were to develop the plan, but we looked at it being a up to 5-year rollout. It would take a long time to be able to, through our operational budget, which we're involved in to a certain extent, but certainly through the town's operational budget, to actually implement all the things that were suggested in the plan. And there was a grant available through the federal government that I applied for and was successful to get it, so that we can actually implement the majority of this plan. And we're going to be bringing, Wendy and I are presenting a presentation later in the committee meeting to actually go over what that entails. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Thanks.
Sue, don't stay. Just stay on the line, because the next one's going to be very quick, and then you're up. So all those in favor? Passed unanimously. The consent agenda. That council hear and receive the consent agenda, and further that the information and opinions provided in the consent agenda items are that of the author, they're not verified or approved of being correct, and it is 8.1, the County of Simcoe 2022 Immigration Survey. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Vice Chair McLeod, seconded by Acting Mayor Hull. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, call for the vote. Excellent. Departmental updates. 9.1, Downtown Garden Master Plan. Manager Martin and BIA Manager Nicholson, take it away, whoever would like to.
I think Wendy and I are going to tag team on this.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, are you able to hear me?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, great. Yes, so Sue and I wanted to update the committee on the Garden Master Plan, and with your permission, Chair and members of committee, we have a couple of slides to go through. Sue will do the first bunch, and then I'll follow up with the goals and recommendations.
So as I had just mentioned when I was speaking about the minutes, we had secured a landscape architect to reimagine the historic downtown. As I said, there was a lot of gardens that had come to fruition through several projects, and we wanted to ensure that we were doing the best that we could with the resources that we had. We have a beautiful downtown, but there are limited resources, and we wanted to ensure that, looking at plantings, whether it was the right plants, the right place to plants. There's a lot of gardens in our public spaces that we want to be functional, attractive, safe, and welcoming. I'll go on to the next slide. As you know, in 2010, we went under a major reconstruction to refresh the landscape, to reduce and redesign loitering spaces. That was certainly accepted, was part of the design criteria, to support marketing activity, that allowed more patio spaces and merchandise spaces, outside merchandise spaces, to ensure that it met with the heritage character. and certainly retained amenity spaces for shoppers and visitors. But as part of this reconstruction, we went from 3 gardens, as I said before, to more than 30 new garden areas. Next slide. And since that time, as I mentioned, in addition to the parking lot borders that we have that were earlier than 2010, we added gardens in First and Huron Street, sorry, that's a typo, reconstruction, the Hume Street reconstruction, and of course, as we develop the waterfront promenade, there's some new garden areas there. So this garden plan was undertaken to develop a cohesive plan to ensure that the garden areas are tied together with themes and plantings that enhance the built form environment. Next slide. So in 2021, the Downtown Garden Plan was authored by the Safarian Design Group. They're an award-winning landscape architect, and they were the winners of the RFP, as I mentioned before. And they have experience in downtown business improvement areas as well. And they certainly looked at an inventory of the existing conditions and reviewed many of the town's master plans. I won't get into details on that. And then I think, Wendy, you're going to take over next, right?
Yeah. The next slide. Goals of the plan included ensuring unified garden areas with common themes and plantings that enhance the built form environment, identifying non-viable garden spaces and creating new uses for those spaces that are deemed non-viable, identifying garden areas with additional purposes or multi-use capabilities, and creating a good first impression by designing gardening areas in the public realm to enhance a positive public image of the town. Next slide, please. The garden plan proposes the following design principles in addition to those discussed in the previous slide. So encourage plant diversity to bring year-round seasonal interest to downtown gardens, develop a consistent design expression and language with plantings and site furnishings, expand on garden area opportunities consistent with municipal land use, transportation, art and culture heritage, and sustainable development policies, as well as consider short-term and long-term maintenance and operations. Next slide, please. So recommendations that came from the garden plan, it divided the BIA into different zones. So zone 1 through 5, and that's based on vehicular and pedestrian use, levels of maintenance and operations, plantings, and character. Key recommendations include continuing the colorful annual plantings that exist today and including a vertical planter to raise the color from the ground level, replacing the benches, garbage recycling containers, bike racks, and tree guards, just to refresh, since we were very lucky to get the grant money to bring in new infrastructure or replace the existing infrastructure, sorry. Install new tree grates, irrigation in the major gardens, refresh the parking lot gardens with plant material to fill in the empty spots. Next slide, please. And 2022 work. So again, as Sue mentioned, we were very lucky to be successful in getting funding for the work recommended in zone 1, as well as the parking lot gardens, and I believe a little bit of the zone 2. So what we are looking to put out to tender are new benches, new garbage recycling containers, new bike racks, irrigation in the main gardens, some tree guards, some tree grates, and then removal of non-viable gardens. And as I understand that the agreement with the grant organization is the funds have to be spent by December 31st, 2022. And I believe the last slide is any questions. Thank you so much for allowing us to speak on this topic.
Thank you very much. I'm going to look to the clerk to see if there's anyone from the public.
Thank you, Chair Madigan. And again, if you're interested in speaking to the garden master plan, please press the raise your hand feature. No interest at this time, Chair Madigan.
Okay, so then I'm going to look for a mover and seconder that council receive the BIA and downtown garden master plan. Moved by Acting Mayor Hull, seconded by Councillor Berman. That we do that. Any questions or comments? Vice Chair McLeod.
Yes, thank you. And so I have a question for town staff, similar to the question that I asked of General Manager Nicholson, and that is, well, a little different actually. I'm a little concerned about what's about the title page of this report, because it says August of 2021, and I'm just wondering, when was the previous time? Did we see this in August of 2021 as well, and I've forgotten? Through the chair.
Manager Martin, or Director Culver, whoever. I see you both.
I
Yeah.
believe. Yep. Sorry, Dean, you go right ahead.
Yeah, so through you, Chair. No, we hadn't seen. Council had not been presented this. This is one of the things we run into periodically is the use of phrases like master plan, and I would, personally struggle to call this a master plan. It's an operational plan, and so staff viewed it this way, and I'd like to also just sort of add in that. This has been a long time coming. There's been a lot of work done over the years to try and balance a lot of disparate needs and expectations and opinions regarding the downtown gardens. And this has been at the expense of, operational efficiency and a lot of things that Manager Martin's team has to take care of. So when this plan came forward, we saw it as an opportunity as General Manager Nicholson had mentioned to sort of consolidate a lot of those expectations, to create a bit of a roadmap, to create a bit of a plan amongst the the stakeholders in the downtown. And so with all that being said, we didn't see it as a council direction. We saw it as a fulfilling the direction that council, our mandate as it were, that council provides us overall. And given that it was also funded through grant funding, that's how we sort of proceeded. So we do take a learning from this. We've had lots of conversations with CAO Skinner and others in the staff environment to say, sometimes it's not how we perceive it, it's how others do. And so we understand now that in hindsight, we should have brought this before council for consideration or for, dialogue and awareness. And with that being said, we'll take that lesson and go forward. But no, council has not seen this formally, only through BIA minutes.
Vice Chair McLeod.
Thank you, and thank you for that answer, because I thought I was going insane, so I appreciate it. I think it's beautiful, and I think that it's clever and long overdue, and I think that the results are going to be terrific. And so I thank you very much for all the hard work that's gone into it.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor? Perfection. Looking to the clerk to see if there's any public delegations today. So if anyone from the public would like to speak to anything that is on this agenda or has something to do with this committee, you are allowed 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Madigan. Again, if there is any interest in speaking to the standing committee regarding anything within their mandate, please press your raise your hand feature. We do have Jessica Lair would like to address the committee.
Excellent. Welcome, Ms. Lair, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Great, thank you. I've been trying to, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Pleasure to speak. I've been trying to put up my hand and skip from my computer to my phone quickly. So just going back to the BIA, and as one of the 5 directors of Pollinate Collingwood, just want to say how pleased we are to see the involvement of native pollinator species within that plan. And certainly the BIA and the town has all of our support along the way with helping to guide the process wherever needed, or to help with consultation, of course, and just provide all-round assistance. So again, amazing to see that in there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for adding positivity. We appreciate you, and I'm going to look to the clerk to see if there's anything else. Seeing none, we're going to move on to other business. Acting Mayor Hull. Maybe now's the time if you would like to bring up to the director.
Thank you. I had 2 items,
yes,
if
sir.
I may. One
Yes.
was specific. It was actually specific to gardens, but side of the discussion, and then the second was related to parking and specifically Sunset, perhaps, but I might broaden it to paid parking in general.
Okay, perfect.
With your latitude. So the first through you, maybe to staff, is just that there has been some discussion or chatter as it relates to the Friendship Gardens on Minnesota Street. And I'm just wondering if staff could provide an update as to where the garden fits within the overall plan, not the plan we're just referring to, but I'm talking about the RC in general, from a maintenance perspective, and what people can maybe expect for this green.
Director Culver?
Thank you, Chair. So specific to Friendship Gardens, I have to kind of start with a bit of a broader consideration that, and that is that we, like a lot of businesses in the community, have struggled with seasonal staffing early on. Things seem to be improving. We seem to be having more bodies in play currently, although not a full complement as of yet. So that's one thing that has held us back from hitting some of the objectives caused by how the season runs. And then the second thing is the season itself. And in some years, such as this year, we have warmer, wetter weather that leads to a lot of growth. We have no mow May that we have to contend with following the shaggy season for lawns. So we're out getting grass cutting caught up as of now. And I know that the Friendship Garden was cut on Friday, which I think was following the period where some comment led to a lot of concern. So it has been mowed, or we've begun the process of mowing it. It is on the plan for the gardens to be addressed. However, that has to follow our planting season, which is right now. So staff are out busy populating the beds and getting them ready for growing summer. The other thing that should be noted about Friendship Garden is that we're aware and completely up to speed on the fact that the gazebo is somewhat derelict. It's at the end of its life, so it's going to be being removed, taken out, and the Tory gate, which I believe was removed, is being replaced. But it's right now under fabrication with the vendor that we've hired to do that, and so once it's complete, it'll be installed. And then, so I mentioned about the planting that we have to get done, and then following the planting, all of the garden maintenance will start. That's the weeding and mulching and all of the things that we do to make sure that the gardens look healthy.
Thank you very much. Is that?
It's perfect. If
Excellent.
Can I make two observations?
100%.
One is, and perhaps it could be something that staff take into consideration for the 2023 budget, and that would be the installation of a pole that would allow for the flying of a Japanese flag. And then the second would be that we just had Jessica Lair reference or speak to the downtown and the Pollinate program. I will admittedly advise that I participated in the No Mow May, and I think my neighbors, with maybe rare exception, were horrified. So I'll be certainly looking to do my own part, maybe to identify my property with a sign as to why I'm letting it go. I can be lazy with the best of them. I don't need to take on more with such promotion, but. So just so I'm clear, Director Culver, it was just cut on Friday, but it was part of the No Mow campaign. Is that correct?
So through you, Chair, we didn't formally adopt a No Mow May because, quite honestly, we have liability concerns in some areas, such as sports fields, et cetera. But wherever possible, we allowed cutting to be. We resisted cutting to help out with the No Mow concept, and I will admit that it also fit pretty well with our staffing shortfall, and that not being able to get more people on machinery was something that made No Mow May more possible for us. But I can confirm that it was cut on Friday, and that was after a hiatus of cutting on Friendship Gardens.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Wonderful. So just before we go any further, I just want to piggyback off Acting Mayor. So because I have received some questions about certain other parts of our community. So now that we are in June and our staffing is a little bit up to date, that we anticipate the rest of them being cut in due course.
Yeah, through you, Chair. There's I will say, yes, they're all on the work plan. Yes, every single June, we have the same kind of concerns about the time it takes for us to catch up, especially when we have a warm and wet June or May and June. And so we're doing, our staff, I know Manager Martin and all of her parks crew are doing the very best they can to keep up with town expectations. But we do ask for patience because it is a very, very large job. Mother Nature, as of today, isn't super helpful or conducive to always being out on mowers and in gardens the way we'd like to be. But we're doing our best, and all the gardens are on our work plan for sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Back to Acting Mayor Hull. Your second.
Second is a matter as it relates to parking, and if appropriate, perhaps a comment could be made, but I'd like to put forward a notice of motion if I may.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think this is an appropriate time to do that.
You like the notice?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the notice, and I don't have anything written out formally, but I would confer with our clerk and have something formally written and presented for our next council meeting, if that's okay.
Yes.
The matter in question relates to the ability for staff to look at and potentially approve on a case-by-case basis the use of complementary parking in some of our metered areas. The issue at hand specifically took place yesterday at Sunset Point when the area is being used for a fundraising event specific to charities.
Yes.
So not looking for an exception as it relates to my friend's wedding or to a barbecue for a community group. This is something that maybe the intent is actually to raise community funds, and could there be latitude? So that would be the notice of motion, is that staff would come back with a report as to potential options for the paid parking.
And you will work within the clerk's department to get that. I'm getting a nod from her. Wonderful. Thank you very much. That's an excellent idea. And it's always horrible if somebody is down there for a good cause and unfortunately gets a ticket. So thank you. Anything else, sir? Wonderful.
Appreciate it.
Anything from anybody else on the committee? Seeing none, I'm going to look for an adjournment. Vice Chair McLeod. All those in favor? Thank you. Wonderful. A lot of good stuff today, and we will see you in an hour. Take care.